The historic center of Mexico City has more than 1,500 mansions, buildings and palaces that integrate a beautiful and invaluable architectural, artistic and cultural heritage. In the early 19th century, Baron Alejandro von Humboldt, because of his visit to Mexico, baptized his capital as the City of Palaces. He was right, because the city was an impressive set of works of architecture.
At the end of the 19th century, the so-called Porfirista dictatorship generated an important period of peace and economic prosperity in Mexico that allowed to commission the best architects of the time to build works of incredible beauty. Architects such as Adamo Boari, Manuel Garrazpi, Roberto Gayol and Antonio Rivas Mercado competed for Mexico City to continue being the City of Palaces.
Over the years, the conservation and restoration of such an invaluable heritage has been an arduous, difficult and very expensive task. Our country owes much to people and institutions that have given all their energy to the wonderful task of recovering these palaces their majestic presence. Such is the case of the house built by the Mexican architect Antonio Rivas Mercado on Calle de Héroes No. 45 in the now Guerrero neighborhood of Mexico City.
Completed in 1898, the house was the seat of the architect's office, but also the home of the Rivas Mercado family, integrated by his wife Matilda Castellanos and their 4 children, Alicia, Maria Antonietta, Mario, and Amelia. In 1936, the house was acquired by Professor Rafael Sosa Mora to establish in it the secretarial school known as the Washington Institute, which worked until the devastating earthquake suffered in Mexico City in 1985, caused serious damage to the house, to such an extent that it had to be abandoned until it was practically in ruins.
In 2008, began an impressive effort that would last more than a decade, for Casa Rivas Mercado to recover its greatness. Thanks to the tireless work of Ana Lilia Cepeda de Leon, General Coordinator of the project at the Commemorations Foundation, and with the invaluable support of enthusiastic patrons and architecture professionals, it was possible to restore this beautiful house. In her book, A Story Behind History, Ana Lilia Cepeda describes with passion.
Today, the old House of Heroes is rebuilt. In its wooden floors, mosaics and thick glass resonate the steps and history of those who inhabited it. Pink quarry from Zacatecas, green from Oaxaca, white from Pachuca, gray from Remedies, beige, coffee and orange show the delicacy and versatility with which it was built.
We invite you to know in detail this beautiful architectural work, and to imagine how was the life of the Rivas Mercado family in this house.
With 1,575 square meters of construction on 3 levels, Casa Rivas Mercado is not one of the largest and most opulent of its time. However, it surprises with its intelligent distribution, and the countless practical and artistic details that the architect chiseled into its walls, floors, ceilings, and windows. Although the house has been structurally stabilized, it maintains an inclination of 90 centimeters that has greatly hindered its restoration.
The floors of the house have 90 different designs of mosaics placed to bone, that is, without glue between them, so they must be adjusted millimeter. The mosaics were manufactured by the English company Craven Dunhill Jackfield Tile, located very close to London. Founded in 1872, this factory stands out to this day for its original hand-painted handmade ceramic designs, and has beautiful projects developed around the world. With the support of these craftsmen, it was possible to replace 50,000 mosaics of 80 different types.
The placement of the mosaic rugs was an additional challenge, due to the very inclination of the house. Before placing them, teams of restorers assembled the complex geometric figures on large wooden bases placed in the outdoor courtyard. In her book, In the Shadow of the Angel, Catherine Blair helps us imagine the atmosphere of the house.
The mansion of the Rivas Mercado projected a unique personality. It was a two-story house and the basement. It was entered through a long open gallery from which a classical portico was projected. The house faced northwest, an error that Antonio had recognized after the cold of the first rainy season. His studio on the second floor was the hottest and brightest room, so he was said to have built a 30-room mansion as if it were an artist's workshop. On the ground floor was the Moorish living room, decorated with mudjar elements, gobelins with scenes of the French countryside, Persian wool rugs, wooden floors with symmetrical drawings, and a fluffy brocade armchair. Here, the architect received his friends, the architect Adamo Boari, Manuel Escandon, and Ignacio Torres Adalid.
Antonio Rivas Mercado was born in the city of Tepic, Nayarit in February 1853, being the youngest of a family of 8 brothers. His father was a landowner, merchant and politician, who was part of the movement to make Nayarit independent from the state of Jalisco, which would become a reality until 1917. In 1864, the same year that Charlotte and Maximilian arrived in Mexico, his father sent Antonio, only 10 years old, to his associate's house in London, England, so that he could acquire a solid European training. His stay in Europe was a wonderful adventure that forged his character and developed his creative capacity.
He began his studies at the Jesuit College of Stonyhurst in England, continued at the Lycée de Bordeaux in France, and in 1878 graduated with honors in architecture from the School of Fine Arts, and in engineering at the Sorbonne University in Paris. Very corpulent and with a height of almost 2 meters, his friends nicknamed him the Bear, but not because of his physique, but because on one occasion he accepted the challenge of a gypsy, so that in an improvised ring he resisted a minute fighting a brown bear. He toured Italy by bicycle, painting watercolors to survive, and also Spain, where he marveled at the architecture of Arab tradition.
In the house, the studio occupied one end of the second floor. It was a large room that accommodated 5 drawing boards, a small curtained desk for the accountant, and Antonio's desk. He had designed the studio to make the most of the northern light. A skylight on the ceiling eliminated long shadows.
On his return to Mexico in 1879, he presented the professional exam to be able to practice in our country, which was granted unanimously. The vast work of the architect Rivas Mercado began with the remodeling of the Pulquera Hacienda of San Antonio Omatusco in the state of Mexico, owned by the rich landowner Ignacio Torres Adelaide, and the Hacienda de Santa Maria in the state of Hidalgo, owned by the then-President Manuel Gonzalez, with whom he established a close friendship. Delighted with the talent of the architect, both would also commission him to build their respective mansions in Mexico City.
It was President Manuel Gonzalez who commissioned his first public work, to build the railway customs terminal in Tlatelolco, an impressive and elegant building with a French facade that was a great success for the architect.
From 1891, the architect Rivas Mercado taught composition at the Academy of San Carlos, school of which he was director from 1903 to 1912. The coexistence with the students came to turn him into a patron of several notable artists of the time, among which the painter Diego Rivera stood out. In the Alcazar of the Chapultepec Castle, he designed and built the ceremonial staircase known as the Lion Stairway, and in the National Palace, he carried out the renovation and decoration of the Pan American Hall.
President Manuel Gonzalez also commissioned him to remodel the Hacienda de la Concepcion located on the land known as Chapingo. Its main building currently houses the rectory of the Autonomous University of Chapingo. Architect Rivas Mercado was also responsible for the completion of the Teatro Juarez in the city of Guanajuato, notable for its colonnade topped by statues of the Muses and its Oriental-style interior.
In the same city of Guanajuato, he also built the Hidalgo Market, initially projected as a railway station. In 1898, he built the Municipal Palace of Tlalpan, being one of the most active and recognized constructions in the area.
At the beginning of the 20th century, the architect built in the street of Humboldt No. 5 of the Colonia Juarez, the residence of the lawyer and rector of the National University, Don José Macías Castorena. Property that nowadays houses the Wax Museum of Mexico City.
In 1900, he won the contest convened by President Porfirio Diaz for the construction of the monument commemorating the centenary of the independence of Mexico. Known by the people as the Angel of Independence, the monument is a large column of gray marble, topped by a gold-finished bronze-winged Victory, that dominates the most important roundabout of the Paseo de la Reforma in Mexico City.
On its pedestal stand statues of insurgent heroes, in white marble, accompanied by 4 bronze statues, representing war, peace, law, and justice.
Antoinette, Amelia and Mario, the 3 youngest children of the architect, were born in the House of Heroes. Alicia, the oldest and most graceful of the sisters, was the favorite of their mother Matilda Castellanos, who closely supervised the education of carefully selected tutors. Catherine Blair recreates in her book.
A small room at the back of the second floor served as a classroom, presided over by Miss Chavez, with glasses, a public school elementary school teacher, and Miss Etta, the English teacher, who never took her hat off. Her father had ordered for Antoinette a desk equal to Alice's and had bought her for herself a series of school supplies required by the government's primary program.
Since she learned to crawl, the maids nicknamed Antoinette the brunette and Alice the pretty. Little Antoinette had aristocratic features and a lively mind. She became an inseparable companion of Uncle Beto, her father's brother who lived in the house with them, whom she harassed with the incessant stream of questions that forced her to grease the wheels of her rusty brain.
Antonietta always resented the lack of affection of her mother, but it was perhaps this fact that helped her to forge an independent character and that over the years would make her a precursor of feminism in Mexico, patron of several outstanding artists, and promoter of the arts, by creating the Ulises Theater and promoting the creation of the National Symphony Orchestra, hand in hand with Maestro Chavez.
During the turbulent years of the Mexican Revolution, the Rivas Mercado family remained in the house. The architect, who was already 60 years old, significantly reduced his activity. In 1913, he separated from his wife, who remained in Europe with their daughter Alice. In 1991, the French writer Fabienne Bradou published her book Antonietta, being one of the first historians to investigate and disseminate the life of Antonietta and the Rivas Mercado family. In her book she tells us,
unlike other wealthy families in the capital, the Rivas Mercado remained in the country. The revolution did not affect them in the material or economic sense. Their buildings and neighborhoods were not touched, and since they had no land in the countryside, they did not feel threatened.
Fabienne Bradou also tells us a curious episode in the life of the Rivas Mercado.
The revolution had stopped right in front of his house, when General Lucio Blanco settled in the huge abandoned house of the Casases to transform it into his headquarters. One morning, Don Antonio noticed Lucio Blanco pointing to his house and making plans with her. He then saw that the general was approaching with an entourage of men branded as Canaanites. He resolved to confront them, and went out to the terrace.
Good morning, my general. Are you offered anything?
Yes, architect, he wanted you to let me into his house. I am not asking you to leave your home, but to let my soldiers train at the entrance.
Do you plan to install shooting targets in my yard?
No, it is not like that. It is that my soldiers do not know how to march in round, and this semicircular entrance is ideal for learning to turn without losing the cadence in the step.
The architect could barely suppress the laughter. Don Antonio accepted, thinking that the damage could be greater, and extended his hand to the general to seal the pact, yes, without moving from the third step, so the general had to take a step forward to collide the hand of the bear. The architect forced the children to hide in the basement from where they could only see the boots of the soldiers, playing to choose which would be the bravest and most gallant of all.
As the marital relationship deteriorated, Matilda Castellanos remained in Europe, along with her daughter Alicia, for more than 4 years. Antoinette, then 14, took over her father's house and her younger siblings Mario and Emilia. He also became his father's supporter by carrying the expense of the house and helping in the collection of rents from the goods owned by the family.
After delivering the project for the remodeling of Chapultepec, the architect resided in Paris for more than 5 years, and returned to Mexico in 1926 with a very deteriorated health. Don Antonio Rivas Mercado died in January 1927 in Mexico City at the age of 73. According to the provisions of his will, his eldest daughter, Alice, inherited the House of Heroes, while Marie Antoinette and her brothers Mario and Emilia received other properties and capital.
Unfortunately, Alice rented the house in 1927, so Marie Antoinette removed the furniture to protect them in one of her properties, the former convent of the nuns of the Order of San Geronimo, current headquarters of the cloister of Sor Juana, from where unfortunately they were stolen.
The furniture was never found, so today the House of Heroes exhibits its greatness, without the decorations that adorned it, when it was the house of the Rivas Mercado family.
When in Mexico, you can join a guided tour of the house by calling 55-2591-6666 or writing an email to visitas@casarivasmercado.com.